Hey, good morning, everyone. It's time for some spiritual coffee. So grab your beverage, and I'm Julie Caraccio, and
Angela Coulter. I'm glad to see everybody here today with us. As always, we're always flying by the seat of our pants, but that's all just moving with the flow. So we always have good topics, and today's a really good one too. So Julie, why don't you start with your stuff because that's what started off this topic to begin with.
so here's where we're going to start and just kind of see where it leads because as we were talking earlier, this can be 10 minutes to 4 hours. So when I was in Boston this weekend, I went last weekend for a wedding and it was for the little girl, young woman that I nannied. And what was so great is I got to see her and her brother who I took care of, but also the next door neighbor who said to me, "Oh my gosh, you were such an influence on me." And she had some bridesmen, which was very cool. And all those kids remembered me, and it just really warmed my heart. And the bride saying, the worst day of my life is when you left, and talking about how her brother was younger was upset. And I bring this up because a lot of times someone like a nanny is looked down upon. It's not seen as an important job. And so meanwhile, we had the wedding, and then we were leaving to go visit my husband's sister. We got on the train. Well, we had to take T to the bus. And the guy who helped us on the bus, because I'm like, trying to figure it all out, was so great. And he shared with us that he'd been working for the MBTA for 22 years, and he talked about how I met a couple that were courting that he drove, and then got married and ran him to the airport, and they had a kid. But my long-winded point is he loved his job, and he was great about it. He had enthusiasm. He was happy. He was the best bus driver that he could be. And again, based on our society, I'm just going to talk about American society because that's where I am, that's seen as unimportant, as not having significance. And so these two things really have gotten me thinking the past couple days is why is that? Why is one job seen as less? And because especially we're all connected. And so that's where we're going to start. All right, Angela, what are your thoughts right off the bat?
Well, that actually translates to a lot of other things, but yeah, absolutely. And when I work with clients all the time, we talk about really what is so important more than anything else is finding your passion and finding what makes you tick. And that doesn't mean you have to be the president. It doesn't mean you have to own a Fortune 500 company. It actually is what is it that makes you tick, because of the way that my understanding is, we're part of this earth organism, and the way that we sort of signed up to do this is we all have certain jobs. We all have certain notes in the symphony, as I call it, and without each note, the symphony wouldn't play. So that, that can seem mundane in the 3D, when you're talking about bus drivers, or you talk about garbage collectors, or you talk about, sewer workers or whatever, but it's sort of like, well, if we didn't have garbage collectors, what would happen? What if we didn't have bus drivers, what would happen? And the thing is, it keeps everything flowing, but when we approach what we do, first of all, the first thing is to find your passion and to find what makes you tick. And again, there's no hierarchy on that. That's the ego, right? It's the ego, like you're saying, what is, it's funny because we had a nanny, but my kids were little for like 3.5 years, and she was God in many respects because she took care of my priceless being. So I never looked down upon anything because it was always very important to have. In fact, I don't know. I think I interviewed like 22 people before I actually liked somebody to watch my kids. So, yeah. So, but anyway, we have this hierarchy, and a lot of times in our minds, our culture is based on how much money you make, about the prestige that goes along with the position. In reality, every single job is important, and once you find what you really love, it doesn't become work, so then you're doing it all the time, and it's okay because it's not work, it's just what you enjoy. Somebody like that bus driver loves people, right? Obviously loves people and doing what he does, and that shows. Well, what happens spiritually, so let's move over to the spiritual woo-woo stuff, but what happens when we love what we do and we're in this state of love and well-being all the time is that we actually raise our own vibration, and we live in a higher vibration, and when we hold the higher vibration, we actually help raise the vibration of everybody around us. So that bus driver made you feel good about your day or where you're going or what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. But I also want to because I am guilty as charged for this. Unfortunately, too many years is not. I'm still growing up. I'm still figuring out what I want to do when I become an adult. And it's changed over the years. And looking back, I understand each piece of the pie of the puzzle and how it led me to where I am today. And so I think sometimes we'd be like, oh my gosh, well, my life will get better when this happens. And so for me, for a long time, it was, well, when I find my husband, or, when I figure out what I want to do. And, one huge step I've made is I'm like, well, it's kind of fluid. Things are changing because, I would have never, before doing the show, that wasn't in my personality. I was a background person, and I discovered not only I loved it, but I could actually do it. So I think it's really important while we're waiting, and I don't even, that term makes me a little, is to be happy. Be like, okay, if in this moment, this is what I'm doing, accept it, have gratitude and love it, and trust everything will come as it's meant to come.
Right, and enjoy everything. Yeah, and enjoy everything as it is right now, because really all we have is this moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's right. That's the great second point to that is, yeah, while you're deciding on that, or if you haven't followed your heart yet, or you're trying to figure out what is going to make you your heart, tick or sing or whatever, it is finding joy in every moment. And in fact, very funny, we are going through this. Here we go. There's that little turn in the road. But we are going through a really challenging time in the past couple of weeks, all of us collectively, because we're really releasing some really deep stuff, like deeper than ever. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to who feel like they've hit rock bottom, who feel like, and because of the fact that it's time for them to totally change direction, right? And no judgment, but it's like, well, they stayed with what was comfortable until the higher self says, nope, now we have no time. Well, much like what happened with me with my Grand Awakening, it's like, okay, stop screwing around. Now we have no time. You got to get on this and start doing this, And so one person I was talking to yesterday is like, well, I see that at the end of the tunnel, but it's like 4 weeks away, right? I mean, there's like a lot of stuff between now and those 4 weeks, and I said, okay, so one moment at a time, enjoy the space you're in. Find the humor in it, find the beauty in it, find what is in the heart of it so that you can breathe and get yourself through it. And I told the person, I said, okay, I'll tell you what, at least once a day, I'm going to text you a joke for the next 4 weeks, just randomly. Different times a day, whatever I think of it, I'm going to go look up stupid jokes. I'm going to text them to you. Because when we laugh, we release the tension, we raise our vibration, we live in a better place. And even when we're going through stressful stuff, it's important to just stay above it. And, we talked about that, I don't know, one of these shows when I was talking about my trip back from Italy with the whole, like, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. If we just stay in the moment and say, okay, what can I deal with that's right in front of me now? Eckhart Tolle did that with The Power of Now, and that's what that whole book was about, is what is in existence but this moment? Nothing. So when the ego gets out of control, when the ego starts going crazy about, whatever can happen in an hour or in a day, in a week, and what these people are going to think, or what this person thinks, or how this is going to look, and all this kind of stuff, or what happened in the past, and what can happen in the future, and the ego just starts worrying and worrying and worrying and worrying. When we learn to get that presence of stepping out of that and saying, okay, what can I do in this moment? And most of the time is nothing, but enjoy it because I'm here, and find something to enjoy with it. So whether you're doing what makes your heart sing yet or not, it is important to find what it is you can deal with. Like this person I was talking to, incredibly stressful. What's going on is they're closing down a business that they've had for like 40 years. And fought it and fought it and fought it and fought it, and now it's sort of like up against the brick wall, and so there's a bunch of stuff going on. And so I'm like, okay, so remember to step back and breathe and look around and think of the love you have supporting you. Think of the love that you have all the time, and that it's all working out for the highest and best way. And even if others think or feel like there's something weird about what you're doing, like, doesn't matter, number one. But number two is, remember that they volunteered to have that interaction with you for whatever purpose, for whatever lesson they need to learn. And I'm like, and when you can do that and get above the right and wrong, good and bad, and you're just saying you're doing what you need to do, and they will do what they need to do, and it's all okay, And when we can start looking at things with, okay, there's nothing wrong with this moment, and I can just be happy, that just takes a whole lot of weight off of us.
But it's interesting because the point that you mentioned, this person who's had to close their business, that you bring that up, because we need to listen to our intuition. You know, I have been told, you know, sometimes I listen, if I'm honest, I try to listen more, but this person, I'm understanding from what you just said, had opportunities. There were signals to say, hey, you know what, it's time to go in a different direction, because I've seen this like you have with more and more people. They're like, okay, you're not going to listen, the rock bottom, we're just going to pull the rug underneath you. We kept telling you, it's kind of like saying the ark's coming or whatever. We kept telling you there's going to be a storm, and you didn't listen. So I think that that's something, you know, really crucial. Like I was told, okay, these next 2 months, you're to get it together. You've got all these things that you have to do for the next direction, and if you don't have one client, oh well, this is what you're to do. And so I'm like, all right, I got it. I'm not arguing. I'm not whatever worrying about. I'm listening to what I'm told. And if we're open to it, we're getting those messages all the time. And so I think that that's really important if we don't want a complete collapse, to start paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I always tell people is like, well, fine, it's fine. You can ignore the messages.
We all know what happens when that does. I think we've all been in a situation where we're like, okay, heard it, and then, oh well, you know what? I was warned. Or
Yep. And the higher self says, yep, got to change direction. Yep, got to change direction. It gets louder and louder until it's like unmovable, and then that's the whole, I call it the explosion under your butt, the universal explosion under your butt, because that's what it ends up becoming. But and a lot of people are going through that right now because, you know, we all have high aspirations at this point in time during this whole transitional period, and so it's really time, my understanding is it's really time to step into our truth and into our light and our divine self in ways that we have not done in a really, 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 really long time, and, you know, while we're here incarnate. So, and the thing is, though, it's funny as you say that about the garbage men, right? So I say that all the time, and then people say, well, yeah, okay, so really my menial job, like that would have importance, and I'm like, yes, absolutely, because you don't know, how do you know that this, right? Say you learn to live in the moment and live in as much love as possible, right? No matter what your job is. And you carry this light, this vibration, okay? And how do you know that one day you're not going to come across in this job, because of the job, whether you're going to work or from work or you're at work, or you come across this person who's in this dire straits, and just because of your vibration, you shift them around to help them step into, say, some other thing that was also really big and important in the bigger piece of the puzzle. You don't see the domino effect. You know, we don't see the domino effect. That's part of the game here in the 3D. So it's really, it's like, stop thinking about the judgment. That's the judgment, right? Because we create that cultural judgment as to what do you do? How much money do you make? I mean, oh my goodness, where I come from, and I will not name that place up in the Northeast that I come from, but I mean, it's really like people wear what they make on their sleeve kind of thing, and it's like conversations, it's crazy, and I'm like going, that makes you no more valuable to me, no or less, you know, valuable to me, and in fact, some of what we call the most menial jobs, like the bus driver or whatever, like, you know what? I love when, you know what I was talking about? Actually, it's really funny you say that, because I was just talking about this recently. I love Southwest Airlines. And the reason being, a lot of people don't, because it's like, you know, like random seating, and I actually sort of like it. I think it's fine. What I love about Southwest Airlines is that the employees love working for Southwest Airlines in general. And I have never taken a flight. Every single flight in Southwest I've ever taken, there's been at least one of the flight attendants who have been so outrageously funny and joyous and engaging, and you know what, making the flight that much more enjoyable, something that's mundane. So there's the bus driver of the sky, right? Well, not even the bus driver, sort of the steward, right, of the sky. And yeah, okay, people are like, okay, we're sort of cramped. We got to sit on this thing for, you know, whatever period of time, whatever. And anything that makes it a little more pleasant to keep you right in the moment, you know, that's awesome. And so guess what? How many people does that person make? feel better every day about what they're doing and where they're going just because of that pleasant interaction that you have on the plane. And guess what? You know what that does for the airline? I want to take Southwest a lot because of the fact that I enjoy it, just because of the interaction I have with the employees, you know? And so it's just, that's really the difference. And if we all put love into every minute of every day and what we do, and to know that everything that we do is important in some way, and every interaction that we have with other people is important, if we become the light, what that does in spreading the light and raising the vibration of everybody around you everywhere. And we need to put, you know, one of my clients is in jail, in prison, and she's in prison for quite a long time, and I've been working with her for like a year and a half. One of the brightest lights I know. Yes, we've worked through what she did, it doesn't even matter, irrelevant, and all the motivations for that, and by the way, we've all done it in different lifetimes, and that kind of stuff, it's all part of the whole process. But you know,
go ahead.
But part of her path is, as she rises above the limitations of her physical place, that she also helps to bring light into that place as well, because where is it needed more than in a place like that?
Absolutely, and I wanted to piggyback on what you said about raising vibration, because we're all connected, and you can also lower vibration. We're going to bring up the airport theme since that's where a lot of this happens. So I'm still type A. I'm a recovering type A. Check the Raleigh-Durham website before I left. We get to the airport. We have a 6:45 a.m. flight, so I'm already kind of haven't slept well because I'm nervous and I'm going to miss the flight. The lot I always park in is closed. There was no indication on the website, so in the morning, I have to go all the way across, and RDU is not huge. I have to go all the way across to a place, find a place. We're not familiar with blah, blah, blah. So we get to the airport. We never check bags. I'm like, you know what, we'll just check the bag, just make it easier for the trip, because we have to pay, and I don't like to pay for that. So I'm like, all right, it's paid for. All I have to do is drop it off. Well, there's a drop-off line, but it's moving quickly, so I'm not going to worry about it. Well, someone had drama, a family of 8. So we get up to check in, and they're like, we're sorry, you're 2 minutes past the cutoff. If it's 30 minutes. But I said, so I start to panic. My husband's gripping my hand like, don't kill anyone. And the guy's like, you're going to have to go in this other line to get rebooked. And luckily, I kept calm, and the guy next to us said, just hold on, let me finish with this person. I'm going to get you rebooked. I don't want you to have to go to another line. So I'm trying not to panic, because I'm like, I have this wedding to go to. It's summer. And then I thought, just don't yell, just don't scream, just breathe. And, my husband's got my hand in a vice grip. So we ended up getting the next flight, a direct flight at 9:15. Now, how that happened, I won't ever know or ever question, because it's the craziest time of the year. And FYI, it's true, if you're not there to check a bag or get in for half an hour, they will not let you. You cannot fly separately from your baggage. I did not know all this. So just know that if you're traveling. And so as we were sitting there waiting, I thought, you know what, I didn't go into knee-jerk reaction. I did a little bit, but quickly got out of that. And then I thought, okay, well, you know what, maybe there's someone whose mother was dying, and they had to get on that earlier flight to Boston, and it was more important for them to get there than I was. And just trust that there was a reason for it. And to, but my other point is, because someone didn't post on the website that, maybe they're tired or bored with their job, or that someone didn't pay attention when entering, that caused us to miss our flight, because we had done everything, and those circumstances were out of our control. So we're all connected. What you do has an effect on other. You can be like the bus driver and raise a vibration and be all groovy, or you can be like, you know what, it's me, 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 and I'm not going to worry about how my other actions affect people.
Yeah, well, or not even that, or just, oh God, I hate this job. I hate what I'm doing. Oh my God, I'm just going to count the minutes between now and the end of the day. And, I know a lot of people have challenging jobs, because there's a whole lot of inner loathing that's being played out right now, especially now. I would feel like worldwide it's pretty exacerbated, right? So because we're clearing out all this stuff collectively. So it's so more important than even any other time, up until now. I was like, it's so important to be in a place of peace and calmness and clarity and just even contentment and happiness, because that actually helps to Well, look at your husband. He just held your hand. Like, don't, I'm okay. It's okay. Um, so there's nothing you can do when you're stuck in something in the moment, right? You can't do anything about it. You can only accept what you have in front of you, or change it.
Right. Or breathe. That's what I did. Had a vice grip and breath, and says my mind was shooting off to, oh my God, I'm gonna miss the wedding, miss the rehearsal dinner because we're no buying summer, blah blah blah, and be like, okay, whoa, come back and breathe and be in the present moment, and don't go there, and just see what happens.
Yeah, and when we love what we do, when we actually take joy in what we do, and that's why I always go back to the importance of finding your passion and living it, whatever that looks like, because then it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter about everything else around you, because you love it so much, then it's not even work anymore, right? So anybody could be having a fit or having a meltdown or whatever, and you're just like, okay, you can support others easier. You get the job done in a more easy fashion. And there are a lot of people out there who like their jobs, but there are actually surprisingly few out there who actually love what they do. And that's really important. There's a difference. Liking what you do is, okay, this is tolerable and I can do this, because that comes from the cultural belief of I have to have this job to pay the bills, and I do the stuff that makes me really happy off hours, And when we shift that belief to, I can actually do what I love as my job, most people are brought up to believe, oh, you can't make money doing that. You can't make money doing that. And so then they get a job to pay the bills, and then they do the other stuff on the side. But I'm like, but actually, if you explore and allow yourself to develop into something that you're going to love, and allow yourself to integrate all of that into the work you do, then just think of how much joy we have in every day. Like, I love what I do. It's not even work to me. It's play. And I mean, it's just amazing and magical and wondrous, and not everybody would love the job that I do, but I do. In fact, my daughter asked me one day, she goes, Mom, so you basically work with people on releasing their problems and their issues, and whether it's in their head or in their body. And I was like, yeah. She goes, how do you do that all day, every day? I said, it's actually really cool, because my job is to help them figure out how to do it on their own. Like to help them remember how to do it on their own. And it's really cool to watch them progress. And so, like, the thing is, I love it so much, but it's not for everybody. And she's like, I don't know if I could do that, So that's always what this comes down to, is I always tell people, it's like, I don't care what. I have so many stories of people I've walked through and held their hand and said, tell me what will make your heart sing. And then they, and they say, they start to say it, their ego says, no, I can't. And I'm like, that's only culture and other people telling you, no matter where they are, whether they're 25, 45, or 65. And I'm like, you can do anything you want. And I can tell you, people, I've helped them by holding their hand and, like, finding their power, finding their trust in themselves and their higher self and everything, to find what it is that makes them passionate. And once they do, what's awesome is seeing how they naturally blossom in all areas of their life. And so, regardless of what they're doing, they beam light and this high vibration, and you know what? That helps everybody, regardless of if it's useful to you or not, what it is they do.
And it's never too late. My mom's an awesome painter and only discovered that in her 60s. But that's, my mom, that's the only time that she is stress-free. And
right.
She's someone that worries a lot. But when she is in that moment, and, we're now helping her get to the next step. I'm like, your stuff's good. I'm like, we can get a little website for you. But she is happy when she paints. And she's really good. And she's only gotten better. And I laugh because the first time she donated a painting for an auction, she was so, my sister-in-law and brother and my father were like, just leave because you're being a crazy person. And she contacted me. She's like, oh my gosh, guess how much it sold for? And I'm like, $500. And she's like, $600. And
awesome.
And it wasn't about the money because she was in shock. But as she's followed this, she got a show at a little gallery where we are. She's won a prize. And again, she's never going to be Picasso. She's never going to be famous. But she loves it, and it brings her joy. And it completely changes who she is. I mean, completely. She's vibing on the 12th level when she's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows naturally, regardless of what that is. And you know, it's funny you say that about your mom. My mom too, and her thing is pottery, and her pottery is beautiful. And of course, yeah, she's like she always hedges and haw, you know, it's like hedges and haws about I'm like you should sell it. And when I used to have my herb nursery, I had her make these pots that were really, really cool. And then they weren't like strawberry pots where you could put the different herbs like on the outside. They were actually small pots that were sort of piled. It was like 4 together and then 1 in the center, like small pots that you could put plants, herb plants in to put like on a centerpiece on a table. And it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. Had a little plate like built in or whatever. And I said, Mom, we can sell these for $100 a piece easy. And she's like, oh my God, no, blah, 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 blah. I was selling plants and cut herbs and stuff at the farmer's market. And I put those out, and somebody bought one within 2 hours of opening the first day I put it out. And I sold it for $105, and the woman never even blinked. She just said, okay. And I called my mother up. I'm like, Mom, guess what we sold it for? And she's like, oh my God, somebody bought that for $100. I'm like, yes, because you know what? It shows, and you know, and people can feel the passion and the love. I mean, even if they can't even describe why they like something, it's a feeling, and it doesn't have to be art. It can be anything that you produce, because when you produce it with love, what I tell people all the time, cooking, right? People who love to cook, their food tastes delicious. When I put a lot of love and attention into my cooking, the meal always comes out great. And you know, part of it is energetically, and so like that's the same thing when you put love into everything you do. When you put happiness in the moment of, okay, I am going to make this meal and it's going to be delicious. It's because it's a metaphorical representation of my love for my family, right? Or whoever it is I'm feeding or whatever, you know, with the meal, and that really makes a difference. And also it also helps the whole process, because then other people see your kids or whatever, see you loving what you're doing, and then they get interested too, you know, and then they say, okay, well, what's this or what's that? And you know, it was one of the things that really spoke to me was my oldest daughter just graduated from high school, and she wrote my husband and I this letter that made us both cry about the stuff that she's learned from us. But one of them was to find her passion. So I thought that was really cool. But and that's really the important part of if showing others, if I live my passion and I'm happy with what I do, why can't I do that with my life? You know, everybody, or if somebody else, if my parents or my siblings or my friends can do that, how come I can't? Of course you can, because you deserve it. Anything that's preventing you from doing it, that's the healing work you need to do to get to this place of saying, I'm worthy and deserving of loving every moment of my day and every minute of my life.
Well, I unfortunately love to bake, and it shows now in my stomach as well as my husband. So we're gonna have to come up with a more healthier baking alternative that I can put some good love into. All right, so Angela, give us some closing thoughts? What you want people to take away from our coffee talk today?
So the whole staying in the moment. So it's like so many different sides to this that we were talking about today. But you know, the staying in the moment, that is one of our most challenging efforts, because the ego takes us out of the moment. So people ask me all the time, what's the voice of the ego versus the higher self? And I'm like, the voice of the ego takes you out of this moment. The ego anticipates, you know, projects, it has anxieties and fears and everything. All that's based on what could happen, what might happen, what has happened, and everything else. And when we get into this place of the higher self, we're just like in this place of, okay, I am. And when we do that, you know, that partially goes back to loving what we do, finding your passion, knowing that you're worthy of finding your passion, and also enjoying and finding the joy and beauty in every moment of living. Then that really alone helps us to raise our vibration and raise everybody's vibration around them. And you know what I tell people to start with is, you don't have to do a lot of journaling, but take a notebook and every morning find 3 things to be grateful for that day. And they can't be the same thing every day, and I tell people this all the time. And remember that as you go through the day, those 3 things that you're grateful for, because that alone will shift your energy. So, you know, like you said, like we were talking about, like finding the thing that you're passionate about, but also finding joy in the moment and being happy where you are right now. And when we have gratitude, that actually helps us remember that yeah, this is actually fun and magical, and we just need to find it in every moment.
And I just want to remind everyone out there, what you do is important. It doesn't matter where you are, if it's what you want to do ultimately, if it's what you're doing for the rest of your life, but you do make a difference, and how you do your job can affect. I saw my friend Lance Fields is watching, and Lance takes photography all over New Orleans where he lives, and I always look forward to those pictures each day because I'm like, what am I going to learn about New Orleans today? What am I going to discover? And it brings me joy. And, you know, that's not his job. I don't think he does it professionally, but you can tell his passion shines through. And so again, you know, as you're doing something that allows you to do your passion, just go for it and share it with others. And I know a lot of people are afraid at the beginning, like, oh my gosh, how's it going to look? You know what? People like Angela mentioned earlier, that shines through. It doesn't have to be Picasso. You don't have to be the greatest ever, but that love shines through. So just remember you're important. Remember we're all connected, and go out there and make it a great day. All right, everyone. We'll see you later. Bye now.
Bye.